Welcome again, everybody. This is your host, Jonathan, executive at MyPad, the most influential people of African descent.
And this is Aziza, your fellow co host, founder of Own Your Narrative 54, global consultant, and class of 2023 MyPad honoree.
And you're listening to the Voices of Influential People podcast, or as we like to call it, the VIP, the show which connects you to the most influential people of African descent worldwide. Now, today's episode is titled AfroFuturism, Embracing Tomorrow. And we're honored to have as a special guest today, Abdul Abdullah, the CEO and co-founder of AfroFuture Fest. Welcome to the show, Abdul. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm pretty excited to be here with you, amazing people.
Thank you very much. So our podcast is truly a global one. So this season, we're having guests from 6 different continents. And today I'm calling in from London.
And I'm calling in from the US.
Whereabouts are you calling in from now, Abdul?
New Jersey. I'm in the US as well.
Okay. So do you go between those two places, Ghana and New Jersey?
Yes, I'm everywhere the company is needed. Wherever in the diaspora we are needed, that's where you can find me.
And what we'd like to do on this show is kick it off with a little fun question to get to know your personality a bit more. So, Abdul, what is your favorite film and why?
Wow, this is a good one. It's Usual Suspects. Kaiser Sose is an incredible character, dynamic. I feel like the movie, one of the things that it taught me was about observation, about personalities, about how people interact with people, perception. All of those things are very important in navigating life in general. There were a lot of very important gems and nuanced information in that movie that I thought was just kind of incredible. I've learned a lot from movies, TV shows, and I think that I don't watch them just for entertainment sake, but I always get some lessons and takeaways from them as well.
That's one of the reasons why I think movies based on a true life story are so powerful, because you can take real life lessons from there, as well as the ones that aren't based on it. When you said The Usual Suspects, the scene that kept playing in my mind was the part where Kaiser Soze at the end was limping, but then he started to walk straight. And then
Man, you just ruined it for so many people. You just ruined it for so many people. I can't believe you
Spoiler alert!
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Hey, in my head it was like it's from the 90s, but people haven't watched it as well.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't watched it.
But now they know.
I should bleep that part out. I should bleep it out.
It's all good.
No, so Abdul, you are a CEO and founder of AfroFuture Fest, but we've also come to understand that you're not just a business person. AfroFuture has had a huge impact economically. You brought over 6,000 job opportunities to Ghana. In 2019 alone, you contributed to 16% of Ghana's tourism. So despite these achievements, I know your journey wasn't always set going down this path of African events. So what was your journey's direction headed towards, and what is AfroFuture and where did it all start from?
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to take your first question first. I think, I want to give a lot of credit to my parents and my community that I was born in. I was one of the first children in my community born in the U.S. So I was everybody's child. Everybody in the Bronx, whether they were from my community, was my auntie and uncle. I stayed at their house. My parents own a restaurant that has been in business for over 36 years. So we fed heads of state. We fed the community for a very long time. So I was always at the restaurant, either, trying to clean tables to make $1, make some tips and things of that nature. So I met a lot of people. Community was always the thing that the restaurant provided. So that's all I grew up knowing. So when it came time to it, although my parents encouraged me to go get my medical degree, and it was something I've always wanted to. I had that little operations toolkit. I wanted to be a surgeon. Community was always where it felt very natural, very easy. And throughout college, after work, I would just kind of do things within the ASU, try and organize events. One of my most successful things that I feel like changed the way I saw events and was a play that I curated at Syracuse University called Condom Man. Interesting. But the reason why I loved it is it reminded me of a play that we used to watch when I was younger in Ghana called Things We Do for Love. It was educating people through comedy, through satire and things of that nature. And I always thought that was a great model, being able to educate people by entertaining them. And that event was the first event I wrote a budget for, got approved, booked talent, had them travel over and curated this experience. So, that was successful. We were able to kind of get the artists there. It kind of gave me a lot of confidence to do events and to be able to plan and execute. It was well attended, it was sold out. After college, my friends and I decided to do some African inspired events in New York City, and they were well attended. We had 4 or 5 thousand people traveling from all over the U.S. And that inspired us to say, hey, let's go to Ghana, let's go try this, let's go see what we can do. Coupled with the restaurant and what was happening in the city, it only made sense for us to kind of carve out a niche for African people, right, where we can listen to our music. And I don't know if you're very familiar with New York in these times, early 2014, 2015. There was nowhere you can hear Afro beats. It was very rare, right? Either it was like a dadoring or it was like a wedding or something like that. But for a club or a venue to be playing Afro beats was not as natural as it is today, right? The radio didn't even play it. I remember hearing the first song on radio, and I was very surprised. Hot 97 is like known to every New Yorker, and hearing African music on there was just like a big deal to us. And that's where the journey started. The journey started for us going to Ghana, getting that experience, and realizing that not only are there opportunities for us to kind of do events here, but there's so much talent on the ground that are doing some amazing things that many people in the diaspora are not aware of. So how can we, create an opportunity to communicate that, create an opportunity to connect people who are doing similar things, and uplift as many people as we can, and God created this opportunity for us to be able to develop this festival out of that circumstance.
And it's been a huge hit. It's been a huge success since, like I said, contributing to 16% of Ghana's tourism in just a year. And so, one thing that you said that is so important to your success is community. So, what is your tips on how to build a successful community when it comes to your company and your business?
Yeah, for me, it was about common interests, right? Common interests, common understanding. When I because I grew up in America, because I also grew up in Ghana. I went to school in Ghana for several years, about 8 years. I went to school to Ghana. A lot of my partners who are currently a part of my business are people I grew up with and did business and went to school with. We're now doing business. That experience, coupled with my experience of going to high school here in America, going to college here in America, taught me a lot about different communities and the blackness that I have to show up as a black man in each of these spaces were very different, but they were also the same. And, I'm in a unique position to be able to understand that. And I understood that on each side of the spectrum that I was a part of, they didn't understand that. And being that bridge was something I was happy to be. It was something that, we can use this opportunity to kind of let each other have empathy with each other or have understanding of each other's struggles. And we think that through the festival, we can do that. One, because we're learning about each other, right? There was nowhere you can go where you can just kind of have an understanding. I want to go to Ghana. Well, what are Ghanaians like outside of what you have experienced? Or what are, Togolese like? What have been people from Benin or Ivory Coast? What are they like? What is their favorite thing to do? I think even on the continent, it's embarrassing to say, but some of us don't even know what other people's traditions are outside of our own country. I didn't know that South Africans didn't eat plantain, and I just couldn't imagine a world that South Africans didn't eat plantain because of how much we love plantains, in West Africa. So, I thought that there was a lot of work and opportunity by just one creating a space where we can learn about each other, we can learn our own cultures, our own experiences about our own food, around our own art, around our own fashion, around our own music. We can create that space, and it doesn't have to be limited to Ghana. It can include everybody. So an inclusive space for me is what describes community, a space where we can learn, we can come together, we can find common ground, common knowledge. And at the time, I was a big fan of the verbiage and the rhetoric that the president of Ghana was using about, being prideful as Black people starts in Africa, right? Understanding and, having agency for Black people around the world starts in Africa. We need to be able to kind of have that love and appreciation for each other so that the world can appreciate the beauty of Blackness, of being Black, right? So that was it. And I think earlier you asked me, what is Afrofuture? Afrofuture to us is a space that we can come together and define what a beautiful future is for Black people around the world in the diaspora. What our story is. For so long, our story has been told for us. Now we have all of these tools, all of these gadgets, all of these connective opportunities to do that for ourselves, to be able to create agency for ourselves, for us to take that back, that power, and create opportunities for ourselves. That's what we're doing. And we're using the vehicles of music, we're using the vehicles of art, fashion, to be able to create that culture that allows us to be able to dream that dream that is the African dream, that is a future for us, by us. That's what we exist for.
Most definitely. And I think it's so important for us in the diaspora to connect with those on the continent. Because, like you said, there's cultural differences between us that we don't know about until we actually visit each other and get to know each other. And that's what Afrofuture does. It provides that opportunity to cross collaborate, or to understand each other. And so I know it wasn't easy in your journey to always to get this idea across. So throughout your journey, aside from the community building, what is some of the key experiences and skills that you think were fundamental to your success today?
Yeah, there was so much I had to learn. Um, so I had to stay teachable. And I think that I had to stay teachable. I had to have conviction, right? Because you can have an idea and not be able to explain it to other people. And that can then lead them to discourage you, lead them to not understand you, to misunderstand you, to misunderstand your goals, your mission, and we had to do all of that, right? So, let's say from an African perspective, they felt like, well, why do we need this? Like, who are you to come and establish this, right? And they have a right to be able to be that skeptical, right? From my perspective, talking to sponsors outside of Africa, well, why should we care about Africa? Why should we spend money in Africa? Why should we market to you guys, right? So being figuring out a way to communicate to both of these different stakeholders was something that we had to navigate. So the thing I had to do was just learn, right? Learn how to communicate this, learn how to be able to speak this, learn how to keep my elevator pitch so that people can understand the benefit and draw out the benefit from it in a very quick manner, right? And those were the first things I had to be able to do. I had to learn how to communicate what this was and what it was. Because, just to take you back to 2017, I didn't even know how to hire people because I didn't know what roles exist in the festival. Just to kind of let you know, we had never done it before at that time. I had done events, I'd done parties, I mentioned I did plays, but I had never thrown a festival. So just kind of understanding, when you see a festival, you just think, oh, I just get a stage, I just get, some food vendors and, but it's just so many technical things that you have to be able to understand that we did on the fly, right? We were learning as we built it. So in fact, when we established the first festival, we thought about it as a day party because it was what we can conceive in our mind and understand, right? So I would say the first part of this entire experience was just kind of learning, educating myself, understanding how festivals are built, understanding how other people's built their festival, what was some of the things that they went through, what was our hook, what was our narratives, right? So for us, we knew we were doing the festival in Ghana, so we wanted to attract the diaspora. So one of our narratives was, you're welcome, right? Aquaba, right? So we wanted when people came to the festival or came to Ghana, they felt Aquaba. So that theme had to pierce through all of the events and all the programmings that we did, right? Another thing was like we wanted to make people felt like Africa is your home. I see you and you see me, right? And Ubuntu, right? So I am because we are, right? So being able to carry that feeling in the event was something that we had to do. So defining our narratives for us, understanding what our themes were for the year, what were we trying to accomplish, what were we trying to say, all of these things that I needed to be able to understand myself and then communicate that to my team. And also, I had to learn how to be a good leader, right? In the beginning, I was just kind of like, why can't you figure this out, right? And it was just very, very, in your mind at the time, you don't think about it as bad leadership, but it was, right? I had to grow and mature into being, a CEO. I was afraid to call myself. I was embarrassed whenever somebody said I was a CEO of my company in the beginning. The first, what, 2, 3 years, I was very embarrassed. I was cringy because I'm like, I didn't feel like one yet, right? So for me, it was just kind of like, man, they're calling me CEO, and I just don't feel internally that I live up to that name or that title yet, and it wasn't until like we went through some of the challenges that you're asking about that overcoming those challenges, understanding that, it is my job to be able to navigate my team through that. And then being able to navigate them through all of those challenges is what made me start to kind of say, all right, well, you are a CEO. You kind of have done this, you have done this, you have done that. And then I gave myself that grace to be able to kind of say, you know what, I do believe that I'm a CEO
Mhm.
and I've lived up to it.
Yeah. That's extremely important too, is giving yourself the grace because a lot of times when people are building, these amazing, building their visions, and executing on their visions, people don't often talk about grace for yourself. And I think that is very, very key. And also just understanding what you've given us previously in your discussion of telling us about your journey. And we know that that has played a crucial part in your success as well. And so I would really, really love to know because I find it so interesting that, you have been to different places, grew up in different places, but also have this understanding, this beautiful mosaic, as I like to think of it, merging the US as well as Ghana and specifically also the Boogie Down Bronx, which I have also crossed
Well, that's what I'm talking
paths,
about. Be
yeah, and
excited.
lived in. Yep. BX.
Yeah, be excited.
That I've crossed paths with. So I would really love to know if you could describe what being Black in the US means to you, having this mosaic, of an experience that you've had, as well as how has that impacted the trajectory and, how you move in this world today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the benefits of living in both Africa and America is just having a full perspective of what blackness means to different people. When you grow up in Africa, everybody around you is black, so you don't even know you're black. You know what I mean? When you grow up in America and you go through life, where even growing up in the Bronx, there was a time where the only white people we came across were Albanians, right? So, it wasn't until I got to college that I realized that, I was black, like, and all the things that we go through as black people, right? I was around for Amadou Diallo. I was around for, a lot of these things that affected black people in a way where I understood that this could be me. Because nobody would look at me and say, "You're Ghanaian, you're Nigerian, you're Jamaican, you are from the Caribbean." They just knew you was black, and understanding blackness in that context is very different than understanding, waking up in Ghana and knowing I'm black, right? Because the challenges, the experiences differ. Although when you net it, right, when you net it against like, maybe oppression or maybe not having, all of the resources you need, that's where we have a through line where, we have similarities and things of that nature. But from an African's perspective, you're looking at, well, at least you make dollars. You know what I mean? At
Yeah.
least you make pounds. And I think that, just having these all understandings and being able to kind of understand the experiences around, Maslow's law of needs, right? Maslow's law of needs, right? Understanding what do people put higher based on what they need. I understand that from a very deep perspective as a kid that grew up in the Bronx, as a kid that grew up in Syracuse, New York, as a kid that grew up in Accra, Ghana. I've been able to see it all across the spectrum and experience it all. And from my perspective, my assessment is that although the challenges may be different for different Black people across the world, um, we have very similar challenges when you look at the core and the root of the problem. And what I've what I'm theorizing and what my hypothesis is through Afrofuture is that if we come together, if we know each other better, and if we can share resources, we can create a space that is going to make us happy. That's going to create this dream that we're looking for Black people and African, right?
Amazing, amazing perspective, and it's awesome that you have not neglected any part of yourself along this journey because you understand the importance of each of those parts of you being so foundational into where you are today. So I think that is phenomenal, and I think that is great, for other people out there in our audience too to take in. Very, very important, and we know that you're beyond a renaissance man. You actually have so many different talents and background in education and in your education rather, and also in business. And what a lot of people in our audience might not know is that you actually have a master's in public health, which is not so specific to events management, but we would love to know if you could actually describe how you were able to make such a successful pivot, between that world and the world of entrepreneurship.
So I haven't pivoted. I mean, I'm still in
Okay.
healthcare. You know, I am a firm believer that I could do whatever I want and I can pursue any passion that I want. And I do have a strong passion in healthcare. I do have a strong passion in not only entertainment, but storytelling, right? So just like you, Aziza, I love storytelling. I want to be able to learn. Right before this podcast, I was rewatching the story of Moses. I have a passion of history. I have a passion of just understanding things from a deeper level. Um, I think as far as my career, I did want to be a doctor. I wanted to go to medical school. So after I graduated from Syracuse University, I wanted to prepare to apply to medical school. So I got a job. I did. After college, I just for some reason I had saved a lot, and I didn't want to take any job. I wanted the job that I wanted. So I remember at the time there was a Big East and there was a career fair, and I just kind of looked through it and I saw one hospital that I've always wanted to work at, and that was Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, which is one of the top cancer centers in the world, if not the top. But I circled it, I prepared, I went to the interview, and I got the job on the spot. Right.
Wow.
Well, not on the spot, but it took a couple of interviews, but I got the job,
You got the job.
and I was end up being there for I want to say not almost 9 years. I was at that hospital doing research. And by the time, you know, my dream for medical school changed while I was there because of interaction. I went to a conference and I met this pharmaceutical rep, and he was, I was with a doctor that I was very fond of. And, he asked, "What do you want to be?" So, yeah, I want to be a doctor. And the pharmaceutical rep looked at my doctor and then looked at me and laughed and said, "Didn't you tell them there's no money in this?" Right? And I just like, "What are you talking about?" Like, so I was, because I've grown up my whole life knowing if you're a doctor, you make a whole lot of money. But and then, I just started learning about, pharmaceuticals and why he felt like he needed to be able to say that. And eventually I started to understand them, right? So when you compare the amount of money by the amount of hours that you put in, obviously, it's very, very different value, quality of life. And I understood that. So that changed my idea of like, all right, do I really want to go to medical school? Like, what is really important to me? And then I decided that research project management was something that was very, very important to me. And after a while, I noticed that the skills that I was going to learn in research were going to be transferable to all jobs that I wanted to do. I ended up leaving Sloan Kettering. I moved to a pharmaceutical company where obviously I understood what the doctor was talking about now when I got to the pharmaceutical company. You know what I mean? But that also opened the idea that I could do other things. So while at Sloan Kettering, I started building the festival because I wanted to be able to challenge another part of me, the creative side of me, outside of the critical side of me. And I realized that, a lot of the skills in project management, understanding how to manage budgets, understanding how to navigate these spaces and talk to people, present, were all skills that I learned while I was doing research, right? And while I was doing research at Sloan Kettering, I managed 6 of their facilities. So any pharmaceutical that wanted to come in to the hospital, I would be the one to onboard them into the facility. So there were 6 facilities in different states that I would manage and manage the staff there. So that was interesting. And now at the pharmaceutical company, I was, managing $1 million budgets, overseeing doctors, managing and driving the study. So I knew that, wow, if I could do this for these people and they believe me and they trust me, I could definitely do this for my own company. And that's what kind of encouraged me to keep going in the way that I go. Yeah.
That is extremely interesting, and also it's encouraging because one of the quick follow up questions that I had to that is sometimes we feel like we have to choose between our dreams, and that we just kind of have to stay the course on one thing. But what would you say to someone out there that's similar to yourself, that where they have multiple, kind of callings or purposes in their life, but might feel like, oh, maybe I should choose this one because it's more stable, or it's what everybody is telling me I should, go towards. What do you have to say to those people, who are trying to navigate?
Yeah, I think that's a battle that they have to fight internally. I'll tell them what worked for me. There was a time where everybody was saying, "Yo, you should quit. You should quit. You should just do the festival. You don't need to." And I did. I did quit, and then I realized that my there was a part of me that was empty. So I kept convincing myself that I didn't want to continue doing what I was doing, but it did fulfill me, right? It fulfilled me. It exposed me. It kept me grounded. It exposed me to a lot of knowledge that I didn't otherwise have. Having my experience in corporate allowed me to be able to build my structure of my company a lot more effectively. I think that also it is also where I also got my philosophy around entertainment. I think that when you are enjoying yourself, you are able to project your best self. And because I'm enjoying myself with the festival and everything that I'm doing around the culture management group, and I'm enjoying myself in understanding and learning about pharmaceuticals, I think that, they align in certain type of ways. For instance, we've introduced Black Health Connect in Ghana as a part of our expo, which is there next to our festival. And I love that, right? Because now I get to combine two passions of mine with the help of Black Health Connect, where now we're able to get healthcare professionals from all over the diaspora to connect in Ghana. Last year, they were able to put together a health fair in Lima, where my parents are from, where they were able to check the blood pressure of people, do a lot of mini checkups on the spot. And I think that it's amazing that I've been able to leverage my experience from the festival, my experience from health, a master's in public health, to be able to create a space where we can create health equity in a deprived space. So I don't necessarily think that you have to choose. You just have to be able to manage your time, and then also make sure that you can give 100% of yourself to each of the passions that you have.
One thing that I really don't like nowadays about the culture is the culture of immediacy, that we have to have our dreams and our aspirations for the future now. And one thing I like about your story is you highlight the fact that the skills that you built up doing research is something that you use now in events management. And so those 9 years weren't for nothing, even though you weren't living your passion in doing Afrofuture. And so what I want to know is that we've known about your past, we know about your current, but what I want to know is your future, Abdul. And so what is your plans for Afrofuture? No pun intended, obviously. What is your plans for
Yeah,
Afrofuture and what is your plans
yeah.
personally for you?
Yeah, no, instant gratification is definitely an illness that the world currently suffers, and I think it's just, comparison is the death of joy. Everybody's comparing themselves because they can see in real time what everybody's doing, or at least what everybody's telling them that they're doing. I don't allow anybody to rush me, and I just try to take my time, and I'm a firm believer that God's time is the best. A lot of the things that have happened to me and for me, I didn't plan, you know what I mean? It just kind of like I was prepared and I met the moment. And I would say that when I think about the future of Afrofuture, what I love is that everybody is really excited about highlighting their culture right now. And I want to give a lot of credit to Afrofuture for putting that spark on the people. It's not that it didn't exist before, but I felt like it's more amplified now. You can see it a lot more now. So we started a ripple effect or a domino effect that is positive for us. Culture management group right now, we're doing sports entertainment by curating the experiences for the Basketball Africa League, and still bringing out those themes of our music. So for instance, we just did South Africa, and one of the things that we wanted to do was be able to create a space where South Africans felt like they saw themselves on the court, right? And I'm very excited about those things. I see the future of Afrofuture being able to tell these stories around the continent, unique stories, from the perspective of the people that are there. I don't want to be able to go recreate what we created in Ghana somewhere else, but I do want to work with somebody in South Africa to create something that is amazing, equally as amazing for South Africans, equally as amazing for Kenyans. We've started doing some work in Francophone Africa, collaborating with La Sunday to bridge that gap between Anglophone and Francophone Africa. And, doing events in Paris, doing events in Abidjan, Assine. Assine has become one of my favorite places to visit. It's so beautiful. Like, I don't travel for all of our events, but I travel for that one because it's that amazing to kind of experience Francophone and African people just coming together and having that experience. So you can see, you definitely should look out to see. We've already funded 2 reality shows. We're looking to produce a documentary, hopefully movies coming out soon, short stories, mini series that we're looking to produce that are going to complement some of what we want to learn, right? I want to know, everybody battles the jollof, but like just kind of trailing the history of jollof around the continent will be very interesting to see. Why do we eat the type of food that we eat? I think high in the hog is incredible, but how do we kind of trace the narratives of our own food? Like, how do we trace the narratives of, our fashion, like where it comes from and how it's made, what's going on in the continent? How do we tell stories around our pioneers? Can you imagine? I could search Netflix and not find one bibliography or a story around Kwame Nkrumah or Thomas Sankara. Like, you know what I mean? Like everything is a narration. There's not one movie, there's not one documentary or docuseries highlighting these people. I'm very excited and encouraged by things like Woman King that are telling old African stories. Like, I'm very encouraged by, even Black Panther, right? Just making people feel pride and being African. So when I think about the future of Afrofuture, I see that. I also see a lot of traveling between the continent, right? So now we're doing the BAL. We're encouraging people to come with us to Senegal, come with us to uh, Cairo, come with us to South Africa, come with us to Rwanda. All of those things are important. Maybe we can get my Padians together and we can buy an airplane. We might have to, get an airline to encourage travel across the continent, especially as the AFCFTA is working to kind of get in one airspace so that we can reduce that cost of travel. People shouldn't have to go to Dubai in order to go to another country or go to Paris in order to go to another country within Africa. So all of those things are some of the things that we're very excited about, that we're engaged on. I love that everybody was watching AFCON. Hopefully we can get the same energy around the BAL. Hopefully we can get the same energy around the African Games. Things that just make Black people and Africans be proud of being Africans is where you see Afrofuture, right? We want to be able to provide that entertainment, document that storytelling, and amplify it. Those are the things that we're looking to do.
And we know you all will succeed without a doubt because it's rooted in embracing our joy and our story and our roots. So
Yep.
all that is going to definitely come together, and we just want our tickets wherever you go.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Pull up on me.
You
Pull up
see
on me.
it?
Pull up on me. Yeah.
Well, we cannot believe that we are approaching the end of this interview, and I just can't believe it myself, and I know Jonathan cannot believe it either because we really enjoyed hearing more about your story and listening and just discussing these different experiences that you've had. So we would love to know before we, end the interview, is there anything that we have not asked you that you feel like it's important for you to share with our audience and community?
I'll just say that we should always look to figure out how we can pull another African brother or diaspora brother up, sister up. We need to uplift each other. One of the things I love to do is just make sure that whenever I'm talking about myself and what I'm doing, I plug another African brand, plug another African person, because it's very important for us to uplift our own agencies. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to teach each other the importance of seeing value in each other. And also our unity is going to be able to make sure that we raise our worth, right, to the people that we are fighting against every day, right? We want to fight to be seen. We want to fight to get funded. We want to fight to be able to tell our stories. All of those things are only going to be as important as we are able to drive it to be. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to seeing more Africans do that.
Yeah, because together we thrive.
Yes, the facts.
We do, right?
Until
So
we all win.
until we all win. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we love to also engage the audience. We don't want to leave them hanging out there. They do have a question that they've sent in specifically to you. So if you're up for it, we would love to get your answer to the
Let's
audience
do it.
question. Cool, cool. So as an entrepreneur, could you share any tips or the best ways to create solid partnerships and collaborations while actually building a startup? Because we know you've been able to maneuver through some amazing partnerships and collaborations.
Yeah, I think that you need to create value for yourself. And what I mean by that is a lot of people think about partnerships in a one-way shape, right? Let me give you let me get some money and I'll put your logo on my thing, but that's not a partnership, right? And a lot of partners don't see that as a valuable win. And one of the things I couldn't grasp when I was trying to start my journey on understanding partnerships is you need to find the value that they need, that you have, that you can create for them. I think when you think about big corporations, they don't sponsor you because they want to give money out for free. They sponsor you because you have a value that they need, and that's why they will give you the money that you need to do what you need to do. And identifying that on their part is very important. Now, when it comes to peer-to-peer partnerships or other companies, I also think that it should always be a win-win and there should always be transparency. Those are the partnerships I try to draw out with any of the people that I consider peers that I partner with. Is always where I can show them a win for themselves, where I can also win as well. And, definitely just operating with honesty, operating with transparency, and righteousness is always a great way to be able to develop, right? One of the things that I like to tell people is that Afrofuture is not just a brand that does a festival. I consider ourselves a trust broker because we're selling trust to the companies that we are introducing to the continent. We're selling trust to our customer that if they pay us, they're going to get what we ask them to deliver. And then also we're showing our community that what trust can build. So we're trust broking in several different ways. And that's how we see our company, right? And you can trust that you can leave South Africa and come to Ghana and have a great time. Those are the things that I think are very, very important for us to be able to kind of build that structure that we need on the continent, the infrastructure that we need on the continent. Without trust, we can't build that.
So true. And I love that concept of being a trust broker. So amazing answer. And audience, you heard that insightful and really, really encouraging, inspiring, just phenomenal answer. So don't forget to submit your questions via our platforms on Spotify, YouTube, or Instagram, because you just never know, your question could be read next.
Exactly. And I've loved this conversation, Abdul. And I want to thank you for blessing us with your presence, blessing us with your conversation and words of wisdom. And I want to congratulate you because now you can officially say that you are a VIP.
Lucky me. Good. Hey, I'm hyped. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Abdul, for blessing
Thank
us with
you.
this conversation, man. I've learned a lot. And
Yes.
to our listeners, I want to say this has been Jonathan and Aziza. Make sure you subscribe to us and follow us and stay tuned for the next episode of the Voices of Influential People podcast because you never know who our next VIP might be.